Yeah, I'm curious too. I wasn't 100% aware of I'd heard things about the Canva AI, and I do use Canva as well for like design things, and so it's great that they're offering some help. But I think you touched upon it there with the fact of, well, why are people using it? And I think a lot of the times, if people are wanting it to replicate what they can actually say or the value they can offer, what's the purpose behind that? Is it to speed up time? Is it to save time? Is it to save money? Is it to, why are they using it? Or is it because they don't really have the do they know what they actually want to say to the world? If someone's posting on LinkedIn like saying, oh, these aren't my genuine thoughts, or AI has done it, then what's the purpose behind that? Like, are you trying to build a community? Are you trying to build engagement? Are you trying to do, because there's always a goal beyond the copy. And if you're using the AI to create it, well, how far between yourself and the copy, is it genuinely what you're wanting to say? And will you be able to respond afterwards from that? Do you understand what's actually being created? All that, there's so many questions around it, which I just feel like, it depends what people are ultimately trying to achieve. These tools are useful, they can be helpful, especially for people who perhaps don't feel overly confident with the writing process. I think they can be, a bit of a leg up onto that. But I don't know. I'm curious.
Okay, I'm curious as well. And I'm really glad I asked you because you've answered that like a really strong copywriter with lots
Oh.
of questions. Do you know what I mean? Like exactly what is going on. So what I think is going on is I think it's lazy. Well, I think there's two things going on. The first thing is that these platforms have convinced the world that they need to be in the business of producing content or producing copy.
Mhm.
And this is what a friend of mine calls like the 21st century social media swindle, that they've turned us all into copywriters, content producers, without really paying us any of us very much money. So that's the first thing that's going on. And then the second thing that's going on is clearly no one's got the time or the energy for that or the skill for that. So then I think it's a laziness where they're like, okay, well, I can put a few sentences into this tool and it's going to give me the 600 words I need for a blog post or a social media post or something else. But what I really feel about that is that the world really doesn't need more copy at this point. I think we've got enough copy. What we really need is good copy. Do you know what I mean? Like we could really do with having some much better copy than is available. And I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to get produced. Like you say, what relation does it bear to the writer even?
I think it's quality over quantity, isn't it? And I think the what social media entices us all to believe is that we all have thoughts and opinions and they're all valid and we all have to talk about things all of the time, when actually if you don't have anything good to say or anything new to say or anything to offer, don't say it. Like, there's value in being minimal. Like, and I think a lot of the time people are feeling pressure, especially in, like, if they're a business leader or owner or they have a brand, to be throwing out content constantly to sort of keep up with the Joneses, as it were, like keep up with everybody else. And so people are turning to stuff like AI tools or quick tools that create this content just to be putting it out. But then they're not actually thinking behind, well, what's the purpose of me putting it out? And it's a bit like, I was doing like quite a lot of content on LinkedIn. That's how I've helped like build up my own business. Everything has been written by myself, would make sense. I'm a copywriter. But over the past few weeks, I've been so busy with things that I kind of thought, oh, well, I need to produce content. I need to keep it going out. And I thought, well, what's the purpose behind it? That's only going to make me really, really stressed at the moment. I don't really need, I've got enough clients. I don't really need to be doing this. But in my head, I had this idea that, well, everybody in my industry is posting every single day. So I have to keep posting every single day. And I was like, well, I don't have anything good to offer right now or any value to offer to my community or audience or anything. So I'm just not going to. And I mean, that took a lot for me to make that choice. And I'm a copywriter and I work in marketing, but I think a lot of people don't think that way. They go, no, I must keep putting it out, no matter if like that thought process has stopped and there's nothing good to say. So they'll use a tool like this just to keep churning out the content, even though there's absolutely no value in it. And actually, I think it's the opposite. I think we need to, like you say, pull back a little bit and just produce really good quality content over just rubbish.
Yeah, 100% believe that, because somebody else that I spoke to spoke about this being the fraud of the broadcast industry, that everybody needs to know about you all of the time. Do you know what I mean? Which isn't necessarily true. What you really need to be doing is making sure that the people who might get value from the thing that you offer and actually give you money to do it know about you when they need to know about you. Do you know what I mean? That's the difference. This AI thing, I think the only justification for it really is if you use it, like you use it to get like a base, and then you go, so it might enable you to go deeper into a subject. You know what I mean? If you say, okay, here's my topic, here's like, effectively it might be a research tool if it goes out and finds like lots of interesting, useful references. Other than that, I think it's abomination. I really am worried about the terminators like you.
It's not a good research tool, and I can say this as a researcher PhD. A lot of the times it's pulling things from the internet, but you don't know where it's pulling that information. So you end up, like I say, I tried it out just for my own sort of peace of mind, because you want to know, like, what does this thing offer? Is it amazing? Is it going to take? And a lot of the times it's pulling information from wherever it can find it, but it's not fact. It's just looking for those keywords and looking for something relevant that answers a question. But often you're going to have to go and then double check that anyway to make sure it's accurate, in which case you could have just done that yourself and
Yes.
written something accurately and at least know it's thoroughly researched. And if you're working in business, especially the technical side of stuff, that you just end up doubling your workload for using it. If you are
Yes.
the person in the business, however, who's maybe like 2 or 3 people in a business and you want to have some marketing efforts and the funds aren't there, it can help you get those words on the page. But as a research tool, like you, I think it's an abomination. I don't think it works. It'll probably surpass us and make us eat our words in time, as all these things do. But right now, I think it's a bit of a trapping tool. And I think people need to be really, really cautious of it.
Good. And I'm glad I spoke to someone who's studying a research PhD about that, because that is exactly the right answer. In fact, I did a bit of a master's in digital marketing, and this was a few years ago, but I was shocked at how bad the internet is as a research tool. Like, really, when you are researching something real, I mean, not a holiday in Ibiza, or, but when you're researching something real, like a principle or a philosophy or do you know what I mean? It's like beyond page 2, it all gets kind of irrelevant, is what I found.
It's with everything. I think the problem with the internet is, as we see in the media, is there's so much misinformation on the internet, and if you can't source check correctly and you take something for face value, a lot of the times you're going to find actually that's not the correct information. Like, at my university, it's a bit like, if you can use some online sources, but if it's not a journal or a book or some like proper academic reference from like a reputable source, it's like veto the internet because you just
Yes.
can't. And I think a lot of people can't determine things, which is why so many people just believe anything they see to then go, oh, that's a fact, I believe it now. It's researching is a
Yes.
different skill, and I find it really hard, and I'm at the level I'm at, and yeah, there's lots of information out there. It's deciding what's actually correct or useful.
Yes. Yes. And I tell you the way I feel about it is like artificial intelligence is like artificial grass. It ain't grass and it ain't intelligence. Do you know what I mean? Like, intelligence is not what computers are good at, is data. So
Mm-hmm.
they can store, they can analyze, they can present data. But what that's not intelligence. Like, intelligence is data plus experience plus emotion plus empathy plus connection plus all of these things. Do you know what I mean? So I just worry about the terminators, because we're getting to a point where if the computer says no, you have absolutely no recourse now. There is no human to be found who can actually support you, I think.
Well, that's it. And then what happens when we rely too heavily on computers, as much we do now? So it's like the idea that people, you don't spell anything, not like, even my spelling has got, I'm a writer, right? My spelling has got bad because I rely so heavily on the computer to autocorrect me, and I use tools like Grammarly and things like that which will assist me. But over time, perhaps our skills as human beings are going to weaken. And in that respect, like, what happens to our creativity? What happens to our actual like applied skills if we are relying on something like AI to do it all for us? Because if that then doesn't work, or we get to a point where like we're losing our ability to actually create these things ourselves by being too heavily reliant. And one of the things I'll answer later about how to be sort of better at copywriting, for instance, is to actually do it. And if you don't
Yes.
do it, if you rely on something else, well, you can't ever get better at it. And I don't know, like, I think humans, we like to feel that sense of accomplishment and achievement of actually like learning skills and getting better at something. If we
Yes.
rely too much on technology for everything, where does our motivations come from? Where do we feel satisfied in the work we do? Where that's just a personal input. But I just
Yes.
feel we're going to lose so much from being so heavily reliant on technology and all these tools that we
Yes.
seemingly are making our lives easier, but making
Yeah.
us dumber at the same time.
I think so. Thank you for taking the time to check out this effective marketing clip. If you found this interesting and useful, YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy this one, and this is the latest thing that we've put together. If you haven't yet, and you could take a second to like, share, subscribe, and comment, that will give us the motivation to continue on this epic journey.